Hello everyone, P. McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time we are looking at my Week 5 match in the Critical Force League. The primary reason you don't have any matches previously that I have done recaps on is because I have just inherited this team after it had an 0-3 start and the coach dropped it. I picked it up, played the Week 4 match, had an unfortunate 0-1 loss. The team doesn't really have strong defensive options, and it was just whittled down to the point where it kind of got walked over. But this is my Week 5 match as I'm trying to right the ship, get it back from 0-4. It's an 11 or 10 week season, so there is still time to recover this team. I am playing, what was the team? The Vancouver Coyotes. And so before we dive into the match, we're going to take a look at the team he had available to him and the team I brought to try to best address that. So the team he had available to him was a Hydreigon, Aegislash, Victini, Tapu Fini, Mega Altaria, Porygon 2, Donphan, Cobalion, and Tornadus Eye. Um, so the thing that's pretty clear about his team is there's not a lot of defensive options in this team. Porygon 2 being the primary one, and then Fini and Aegislash having some potential in that regard. But by and large, the team isn't really built to be bulky and sturdy, and so having a piece that is able to gather momentum and sweep is going to be the most efficient way to barrel through a team like this. The There are too many hard hitting options to try to slowly whittle it down. Victini can almost always claim a KO if it wants. If it's abandoned Victini, V Create just generally claims KOs. Slash has a really easy time doing lots of damage. Hydreigon is a nasty plot away from doing scary amounts. And Mega Altaria, same deal. It's a Dragon Dance away from potentially sweeping. So without the defensive backbone to work with on my team, the thing that's very clear looking at Vancouver Coyotes is that I don't have the option to be passive and try to whittle them down. I can have a bit of defense, but any sort of passivity is going to be heavily punished. I don't have some of my normal pieces to work with quite yet. I have made changes to the team, and you'll see that in the Week 6 battle. I was able to overhaul the team. Unfortunately, I did have to use the original team that had a lot of defensive flaws in the Week 4 and Week 5 matches. Week 4 did not go my way. I'm hoping to make better on it in this Week 5 match. So the team I had available to me overall, I have a Galarian Darmanitan, great hard hitter. Unfortunately, clashes pretty heavily with Megalopony. They kind of just do the same thing. They just are a good physical offensive force that can pivot, have really good coverage options, but needing them both is makes it difficult to utilize them either of them well. So it just doesn't get you a lot bringing both of them because they're essentially doing the same role with slightly different typings. Latios, great special attacking option, great wall breaker. I always enjoy a good wall breaker. Good speed tier. Dragon typing is nice and welcome, but again, not very defensive. Celesteela is a solid defensive piece, but he doesn't have a lot of longevity if opponents have good fire or electric options, or if they're just able to stall it or sit in front of it, because it's hard to set up with Celesteela some weeks, and if you can't set up with him, trying to make him reliably defensive is also difficult. Galarian Weezing, again, solid defensive piece, but the issue kind of stands the same as Celesteela, where it has trouble healing. It's relying on Pain Split, very vulnerable to being worn down. This team doesn't have a strong ability to recover health without less optimal ways like Pain Split or Leech Seed Stall, things like that that aren't really reliable. Tangrowth, actually very solid defensive piece. I've had him in several leagues. I tend to trade him away, and I did in fact trade him away on this team as well when I make my team adjustments. But he is just a very good defensive piece if you use him right in certain matchups. Xurkitree, very fun mon, very, very scary if you can get rolling. And in this league, Z crystals are allowed on select Z captains. So having Xurkitree as a Z hypnosis option actually makes him pretty potent as a sweeper if used right. Zoroark is just a bad dark type. It has some gimmick to it. Don't like the point cost. Don't really like the defensive capabilities. Too gimmicky for my taste in utilizing him well. So I'm not too fond of his presence on this team. I don't intend to do a lot with him. Mantine, okay defensive option. Really uh, reliant on him being a strong defogger for this team just because it takes a lot of pressure off Galarian Weezing. but overall not my favorite piece to use, and I don't have good runaway options from electric attacks. As you can see, this team has no ground types, and so my only true defensive retreat from an electric attack is the Tangrowth, which doesn't feel all that great. Otherwise, I get some resisted options in like Xurkitree or Latios, but those things can wear down quickly if I'm not careful. And then finally, Shedinja. Gimmicky, again, gimmicky, not my play style so much. Very reliant on making good predicts and not getting called on a switch in with Shedinja. Capable of being effective, but there's a lot of things that can bring Shedinja down. So overall, not too confident in his ability, and it's only a 1 point mod, so not really looking to use it. So looking at those two teams, ultimately what I try to go with is Mega Lopunny, the scrappy ability, because that's what it has when it Mega evolves. I'm able to run Adamant Nature because the fastest piece on his team is going to be the Tornadus at 111, so I just able to speed creep that and get past it. Triple Axle because that breaks a lot of his things. U-turn for momentum. Close combat again because it breaks a lot of his teams or his team or return. Just because again, none of his team is enjoying that. So basically, it spams attacks freely if I can remove Tapu Fini. That's kind of the one thing standing in the way, but I'm just a predictive U-turn from continuing to keep momentum and making that work. Uh, Galarian Darmanitan, Choice Scarf, speed crept in a way to get past, I believe it was Modest Tapu Fini, just because I didn't expect it to be a Scarf Timid set. So if anything, it would be a Scarf Modest set, and I was able to play with that. U-turn, Icicle Crash, Earthquake Superpower, pretty standard Darmanitan set. Hits a lot of things pretty well, with the exception again of being Fini, where you're kind of just getting neutral damage from the Earthquake. Doesn't bring it down very quickly, so that mon is always a concern. Celesteela, opting to try to make the Automized set work. So I've got Automized, Meteor Beam, Flash Cannon, Flamethrower. Has a pretty good time overall. Victini is kind of the thing standing in the way. I can't attack Victini unless I'm going to use Power Herb on it, and then I still need to be able to break Porygon 2. So if Porygon 2 is in a position to still get past me with Recover, then I'm not in a great spot either. But if his pieces are weakened, it's able to come in and set up an Automize and try and sweep. Latios going for the expert belt just because I like my coverage options. I don't want to be locked into an attack. Shadow Ball, Aura Sphere, Psychic, pretty much hit everything I want with the exception of Fini. I debated between Recovery and Energy Ball, opting ultimately for just having recover options so that I had a way to pivot into V Create Victinis, potentially survive, and then predictive recover on their retreats, just to have a little bit of our longevity, because otherwise this team doesn't take a V create at all. It just kind of crumples to V create. So Latios gives me the option to go in, take a hit, and then recover as it leaves to try to at least soft check it, if nothing else. Otherwise, it has the potential to just tear through the team. Xurkitree as a really solid win condition option. Speed investments to outspeed the Tornadus after the Psyche Z Hypnosis boost. So it'll be faster than all his entire team except for Scarves. Otherwise, everything in special attack, because that's what Xurkitree does best, is just hit incredibly hard. So we're trying to make that work as well. Dazzling Gleam, Thunderbolt, and Energy Ball hit his entire team for neutral or super effective damage. Thunderbolt basically will OHKO everything that doesn't resist it after a boost. I think with like the exception of IG Slash might be the only thing defensively strong enough to withstand a Thunderbolt that isn't a resist. And then finally, Tangrowth, Assault Vest, because he's my best way to handle Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini actually has a pretty impossible time of breaking Assault Vest Tangrowth, so it makes me not very scared of Tapu Fini. Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, Knockoff, generally good coverage. Also a soft answer to Hydreigon. You know, if it starts nasty plotting or if it has flamethrower, I am at risk of crumpling a little bit, but this gives me a short-term solution there, as well as with Specs, IG Slashers, or something like that, a way to again address it and be in a position to do some damage back. So that's the team I brought. That's generally what I was aiming to do. I just go for heavy offensive pressure, which is not my play style. I normally like 3 to sometimes even 4 strong defensive options, some of them that can actually get offensive. But this team just didn't really have a lot of reliable pieces in that regard. And then the ones I did have bad abilities to recover. You know, Regenerator is one of my most reliable ways of recovering health on this team. And so it becomes a match of just trying to establish momentum very early and keep it for the entire game. So that's what I'm generally going for here. And so we'll play this at normal speed for right now. I opt for the Galarian Darmanitan lead just because I feel pretty confident that most of his lead options aren't going to enjoy that. I am wary that there could be a Scarf Victini or a Scarf Hydreigon, so I'm trying to be somewhat cautious of that possibility. But I'm going to make the turn one call because again, this team doesn't have a lot of defense. I don't have great switch ins. So I'm just trying to establish momentum super early here and just keep it for the entire game because that's my best way to win. I'm going to come in with Xurkitree because I'm looking at his team and I'm not seeing an ability to really withstand Xurkitree. If Xurkitree is able to put this Porygon to sleep on a Z Hypnosis, then Xurkitree just basically dominates this game because he doesn't have a defensive piece to come in on it anymore, and it's going to be faster than pretty much everything on the field. So I don't see any reason not to try for Z Hypnosis here. And very fortunately, I do hit the Z Hypnosis. It's only a 60% hit. And so now I have the speed to work with. Hydreigon is sleeping, and it was a Scarf. So his turn one decision to actually flee on Darmanitan was very surprising because he outsped my Darmanitan, unless he had no speed investment at all for some reason. But he was in a position to go first, and with like a Draco Meteor or a Flamethrower, probably KO Darmanitan. So it was a bit of a misplay on his part, I think, on turn one, not opting for that route and instead playing overly cautious because it gave me a free window to get Xurkitree in and do this. And so now Hydreigon's dead. Xurkitree is super scary already. He brings in what is clearly his only defensive option at this point. Porygon isn't in a position to survive the Thunderbolt, or if it is in a position to survive the Thunderbolt, not enough to recover stall. And so he needs to be able to pretty much one hit KO the Xurkitree or risk losing the game. So that's where he's at. And, I do 75% on the Thunderbolt. He comes in with a Shadow Ball. He does a lot of damage, 35%, and then he goes for the Shadow Sneak. So I'm still alive by 12%, but I'm looking at what's left already, and I can already tell I'm in a really effective position because he has no obvious priority left to work with. Victini isn't going to outspeed me unless it's Scarf. Mega Altaria needs to Dragon Dance first to go faster. Porygon 2 probably dies Thunderbolt at this point, as does Tornadus. So I'm already in a pretty dominant position because I was able to get that Z Hypnosis off because I was determined to establish control in the very beginning, and he let it happen. And because he let it happen, Xurkitree was just in an incredible spot to just do this, where it clicks Thunderbolt. Now Victini goes down. Now I'm at 2.5 times boost, and he's got, I think, a 489 was the starting thing. So he's at like 1,000 special attack right now, a ridiculous number. And so there's just nothing left that's going to be able to withstand Xurktree's power. And as you're clearly seeing, his entire team is just crumpling. Altaria is going to go down right here. And then his final piece is Tornadus. Again, I'm outspeeding this Tornadus because I sped crept max speed timid. So all that talk for what was a 9-turn game in the end, but a fair bit of thought went into how do I work around this team's obvious flaw of having almost no strong defensive options because I can't heal. And if I can't heal reliably, my team is threatened to break very quickly. I'm also very prone to things like toxic or any sort of hazard stacking. My team just doesn't have a strong ability to clear hazards, keep healthy, and keep pivoting between defensive options while I slowly whittle his team down, which is more my play style. And so when that wasn't available to me, I was looking at ways to quickly sweep a team and just take absolute control on turn one. And so Galarian Darmanitan, although I don't love him all that much, he did prove to be an effective turn one lead because he was able to kind of come in, force Porygon 2 out, or force the Hydreigon into choice locked attack. Either way, it opens a window up for Xurkitree to come in afterwards. And, I was able to establish that window, come in and immediately pressure his team. And Xurkitree was able to sweep. Xurkitree is no longer on the team. As great as he was in this match, the set is very, very predictable. Z Hypnosis only has a 60% hit rate. So there's also a chance I miss the Hypnosis and it's a meaningful miss and I lose games. There's just a lot rolling in that match or that sweep style, and it just leaves me very prone to being aggressively countered. So I was very happy that Xurkitree was able to go out with a 6-0. I'm not confident I could achieve that in multiple weeks this season. So I was happy to send him away on a high. The team I will be bringing in for week 6 much more reflects my defensive play style, has much more reliable, bulky pieces, still has very strong offensive presence, and is just in a much better position overall to play to some of my win conditions that I'm more used to playing to without necessarily taking away all my firepower either. Because you'll see I have still a very solid amount of uh, strong hitters and things that need to be accounted for in prep, or they just take absolute control and win the game. So I will be back in week 6 for that match, and stay tuned for some of my other series that have wrapped up and I just haven't gotten to the videos yet. I believe most of my playoff leagues are wrapped up, so I'll be bringing those videos as well soon. So stay tuned.